I'm going to go ahead and get started pretty soon. People might join in a little bit, but that's okay. So today I'm just going to give you kind of the rundown as we're kind of nearing the end of classes. Like this is the second portion. So basically we're going to do some poetry today, and that should be really fun. I think you guys are going to enjoy this piece. And I know poetry, probably you guys don't read it as, just regular like books and stuff, or just don't go out and read poetry. But I'm just going to tell you guys a little bit about it, kind of my experience with it, and it should be pretty fun. And then we're also going to do our vocab, or like our stems and roots. That should be also pretty fun, and we can catch up on that. Cool. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen right now. There. Share. Go ahead and present. So I'm going to also do this really quickly. Cool. So today we're going to look at some of Emily Dickinson's work. And so I just want to give you some quick background. So Emily Dickinson, she is not like a modern writer. She was, I think, she was a writer back in the early days. I don't have the exact dates off my head. I'm not looking at any like information, but so I just want to like let you guys know this poem is not from, like 50 years ago or something. It's pretty far back. And so it should be interesting. It's pretty timeless though, so we'll talk about that a little bit more. So without further ado, I'll give you guys a couple, maybe a minute to read through it and just kind of process it. Here we go. It's not a very long poem, but there's a lot of stuff in it. Cool. So I'm seeing that people are done reading the poem. And so I see a lot of times that like on chat that people ask me to, put up on Google Classroom. And so the reason why I'm hesitant to do that most of the time is because I have the vocab on the next slide. And I feel like I just don't want people getting distracted by what I have on the next couple slides. And just so, we could stay here and only look at this. If you are having trouble reading the poem, or if you are having trouble accessing it or seeing it on Zoom, one thing you could do is go online and search Hope by Emily Dickinson. And if you go into a link, it should be, Poetry Foundation works really well, but, it's not a very obscure poem. So if you need to find it online because you can't read it clearly here, that works as well. But yeah, just match it up, make sure it's the same poem. So cool, let's get started. So first of all, I just want to mention poetry, it's a lot more, it's a lot more simple in some ways than like writing, than like novels and stuff, but at the same time, it's a lot more complex because you only have, it's a lot shorter of a piece, and within that piece, they cover like many poets cover a lot of topics or cover a large extended topics, or they go very in depth into one topic themselves. And so that's why, I think it's a totally different kind of reading comprehension that you guys definitely should experience. Um, if poetry isn't your thing, though, I understand. But I think it's good just to get, to get yourself in like more positions where you can experience different types of writing, and so you're just better off, just overall. Yeah, so I'm seeing, why don't we read Shakespeare? I definitely think that if you read Shakespeare, that's definitely go for it. It's very complex writing, and if you do it, it'd probably be, within your class or within your school or something. Me personally, the reason why I didn't choose Shakespeare is because I think one, it's definitely something that I think would be better to be taught or be better doing in like a formal school foundation, and that's just because I'm still reading Shakespeare in high school right now, and so I don't, for me personally, I don't think I can totally give you guys the best that you deserve or the best like analysis of the Shakespeare sonnets or whatever he writes, the plays or other pieces of Shakespeare, of literature that he writes. So I don't think I can totally give you guys that, being fairly. So yeah. So cool. Without further ado, let's get started. Let me pull up this really quickly. Sorry. Pause share. Sorry, give me 1 second. All right. Cool. So without further ado, let's go over content-wise. So we're going to use the raise hand function. What basically happened in this poem, or give your kind of like interpretation of what happens. You can just kind of like yell it out or just say something that happens in the poem. It doesn't necessarily have to be the entire idea of it, but just give your interpretation of it and we can go from there. That way people are on the same page before we get into more content questions. Brayden.
It talks about what hope is and how it can help, sort of.
Okay. Definitely, that's a valid opinion. All right, Alvin.
So what I think like in the first stanza is kind of describing hope as like some sort of bird because it says it has feathers and it perches in your soul.
Yeah, nice. For those of you who haven't had much experience with poetry, these little paragraphs or like these little groupings, those are called stanzas in poetry. And so just proper term, proper vocab. Let's just use that if we can. So nice job. Doran.
It kind of describes like what hope is.
What hope is? Yeah. Mary.
It describes what hope is, and kind of like as if it was a bird, because it says feathers, perches. Sometimes birds sing, and it says little bird.
Nice. Okay. A. Sorry, you don't have your full name in, but.
I think it's kind of like explaining that hope is like a thing, or like it's a living thing.
So it's something that's living? Yeah. Nice. I'm gonna go Edward. Edwards.
The author is talking about hope. Like, hope is like a bird that sings songs that make you happy.
Okay. Yeah, so totally. I'm gonna leave it at that right now. And so what I've deduced is that you guys have picked up that, this entire poem, it's about hope, right? Secondly, Emily Dickinson compares or uses hope and she says that it's a bird, right? And you guys gave evidence, the feathers, perches, sometimes they sing, it says little bird itself. So that's great. You guys are citing evidence. That's awesome. And so I think you guys have, a relatively understand or a pretty good basics of understanding right now of what this poem is. So right now the hope is to, through these questions, we'll be able to, get through this poem and we'll also be able to really understand what each line is saying or what, the, the meaning. I don't want to say definite meaning, but like the meaning of the poem is. I'm seeing someone in chat saying it kind of says that hope is different things. Okay. Alvin, that's an interesting take. Do you want to raise your hand and I can unmute you and you can explain yourself a little bit more?
So I kind of like in each stanza, it's kind of like hope in like different places. Like in the first one, is kind of describing it as like a bird. And second, it's kind of like a thing that can kind of like keep things warm or something. And then the last one, it's in like a very strange place.
Perhaps. Okay. So yeah, so you guys definitely have the first part down and the second part down and the third part. Second part is iffy and third part I think is, you can still expand on, but you guys have the overall arching thing. So let's start first of all with this. So we're gonna go kind of line by line, and the way for poetry is because each part is pretty important. And so in the very beginning it says, hope is a thing with feathers, right? And so with that, you can kind of conclude that Emily Dickinson is making a comparison, or in this case, it's a specific metaphor, right? She's saying that hope is a bird. And so keep track of that, right? So actually, Mia, I saw you put that in chat. Do you want to share your thoughts if you raise your hand?
Thank you.
I think that's a pretty insightful comment if you want to, yeah.
So Alvin said like it was like different things, but I feel like at least the third stanza is about like how you can find hope in many different places, even if it's like a strange sea or like a chillish land.
Yeah, so I'm seeing Ella say this whole thing is a metaphorical comparison. Yeah, so hopefully you guys all know what metaphors are, but metaphors are basically comparisons, and they're different from similes because it's the thing that really defines a metaphor that really like makes it stand out is the is part of it. So hope is the thing with feathers. It's not saying hope is like a thing with feathers. It's directly saying that one thing is something else. And so that's how you can kind of really differentiate a metaphor. And that's basically a really quick definition because I don't want to spend too much time on that. But yeah, so the overarching theme of this poem is that, right, hope is about hope. And then it uses hope as a bird, right? It uses that language in comparison to really fine tune it. So looking in the first stanza, so it basically says, hope is a thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings a tune without the words and never stops at all. So this is kind of like a definition of what hope is, right? In terms of the bird. And so I think you guys definitely got that part. And so in the second line, the sweetest in the gale heard, and sore must be the storm that could have bashed the little bird that kept so many warm. So I really want to go through, let me annotate really quickly. I think this line right here is kind of like the core of this stanza. or at least of what the stanza is trying to express. So if you guys can share your thoughts about like, what might be the storm, or, what might this be like saying, right? Because we know that the little bird is hope, right? Or the bird is hope, and we've made that distinction. So from here, what do you think it's trying to say about hope? Let's go to Sophie.
So like I think the big storm is like making someone is a thing that makes someone really like that makes someone really not hopeful, you know.
Uh-huh. Okay. Let's go to Alvin. Or actually, sorry. I'm gonna go to Helena first because she hasn't talked yet.
I think it might mean like the storm is really powerful. It could like throw the bird off course, but the bird can make it through the storm, so it's like having hope.
Uh-huh. Okay. So the bird can make it through the storm. That might be possible. I think definitely, if you guys don't know what their word abash means, abash is kind of destroy or to get rid of. And that might help you a little bit. Brayden, unmute. There it is.
I forgot to put down my hand.
All right. All right, back to you, Alvin. Sorry, I cut you out last time.
So what I think these two lines kind of means is that something can like easily destroy hope. Like if someone can just like say something mean and it could destroy your hope.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so that might be it. I think we're getting closer now. So Alvin just said something easily might be able to destroy hope. I want to focus on the aspect that he used, easily. Do you think that it's something easily that's able to destroy hope, or what do you think Emily Dickinson is trying to get at about what might destroy hope, right? Because we've basically narrowed down to the third line in this, that could have bashed the little bird, kind of means that could get rid of hope, or get that could make you lose hope. So we'll go to Mary.
Like it probably would like it would like hurt. Maybe it means like it hurts when you maybe it hurts because when you it can hurt sometimes when you don't have hope, but when you do have hope, it doesn't hurt.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I can kind of get what you're saying. I don't think that's quite right, but good take. I like it. I can see where you're coming from. Daphne, I saw you put something into the chat, and if you mind raising your hand, I'd love for you to share. I think that'd be pretty interesting. If you want to, just go ahead and raise your hand. It should be in the participants button. If not, all right, that's fine. All right, but she said soar is a storm, and then she said has to be a big event / storm. Okay, and also, yeah, if you guys don't want to talk, don't worry about it. I'm looking at chat. I don't try to share your thoughts, but yeah, don't like feel pressured to talk. But just, yeah, so it has to be a very big event / storm that would destroy or get rid of hope, right? So not just a small thing, it has to be colossal, or it has to be huge in order to really get rid of hope, or else hope is going to still stand there. So I'm going to go to Mia, if you want to share your thoughts as well.
I feel like the storm must be like a very big challenge to people, or like to the bird in this case. And like the bird is sort of fragile to the storm, but has good, like, high spirits too.
Hmm.
So I feel like, I don't know, hope is still capable of showing up in like bad situations and things like that.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. So I think, yeah. So if the first poem or if the first stanza is all about what hope is, and it's making that comparison, and it's making that bridge and link between hope and a bird, right? Then the second stanza must be about how, or we've narrowed it down to basically, right, how hope is there, hope is almost always there, right? But even in the greatest, but in the greatest of storms or in huge storms, it could still, might lower hope, and it might still like be able to get rid of hope, right? And so I'm seeing, but it says storm must be the storm. So I don't think it would be that of a dramatic event. And so I saw, so basically in that comment, I saw that, maybe storm must be the storm. It doesn't necessarily mean that, it really has to be that bad of a storm. And so I want to point out right here, it could have just said, or Dickinson might have just said, the storm could have abashed the little bird, right? But she chose to use the word soar here, and soar must be the storm. And so in here, soar is kind of like hard, or here is tough. Like that's what soar kind of means. And so the storm must be that tough, or it must be that big, so it could abash the little bird. If that kind of makes sense to you guys. And again, poetry is up to a lot of it's like up to a lot of interpretations, and it's up to a lot of different people who all looked at it. But overall, this is the kind of most agreed upon interpretation. So I think we have a pretty decent understanding of the second and the first stanza. And so when we go to the third stanza, I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asks a crumb of me. So if you guys want to share your thoughts, I've heard pretty much people narrow it down already in the very beginning when we talked about content wise. But if you guys want to raise your hand and share your thoughts about what's happening in the third stanza, or what's Dickinson trying to convey. A.
Well, I think it's a little like, it's kind of saying a compare and contrast.
Uh-huh.
Like it says, yet never in extremity, it asked a crumb of me. So I'm not really sure what that means, but I guess it's like, maybe it says this soar, and the soar must be the storm. It might be the sea, might be the storm, and it asked a crumb of me.
Okay. Doran, do you want to share your thoughts as well?
In the third stanza, I think it means that, like, even in a tough time, like, hope is still there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So definitely, I heard people talk about that in the very beginning, and that's spot on, right? These two lines right here, I've heard it in the chillest lands and on the strangest seas, right? You've heard Hope's song, or you've heard, the bird's song, even in like the chillest lands, right? Or all the way in the strangest sea, in places unknown, in places like you haven't explored. It's always there, right? It's not something that really goes away. And you can find it almost anywhere, right? And so that's kind of like the first two lines in the stanza. But what do you think the second two lines mean? Yet never in extremity it asks a crumb of me, a crumb of me. Because that's a pretty powerful sentiment if you guys can figure out what it means. Sophie? No. I thought I thought you had a pretty good thing in chat, but if you don't feel like talking, that's okay. You guys also raise your hand if you want to talk. That'd be the preferred method, but I'm also looking at chat. Okay, so I see Ella said it means hope is anywhere and at any time. So that's the first two lines. Annie said it means that hope has never asked anyone for help. Okay. Yeah, so that's definitely right as well for the second two lines. That might apply as well. I see Sophie said, I think the phrase "it asked a crumb in me" means that hope never needed anything from the person, meaning that hope is free. You don't need anything to help. And I think that's really spot on. And if you wanted to share your thoughts, go ahead and raise your hand. But I think that's really spot on in what this is trying to say. Because right, it asked a crumb of me. And so the it here, right, is referring to the bird, right, or otherwise as hope. And me, or a crumb of me, is kind of saying like, oh, I never expected anything back from me, but it was always there for me, right? And I think definitely you guys got it, and you guys definitely have a pretty strong understanding right now, I think, of this poem. And so we're going to go into a little bit more of, kind of technical stuff in a bit, but also more content. So, so I said in the chat, Rigel says, does the bird mean hope? Yeah, so the very first stanza here, this is the comparison that hope is a bird. And so you can see through the evidence that I know people have pointed out, hope is a thing with feathers, most likely a bird, that perches in the soul, that lives in our hearts and lives in us, right? And sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And so the hope is always there singing, or the bird is always there singing, and it never really stops. It's always there for us, right? And so if you guys, I think the final thing I want to do here with content before we move on to a quick form thing, and then we'll take a break, is, if you guys can all kind of write down in one sentence, you don't have to share it. You can share it. If you want to put it in chat, go for it. But I want you guys to write down one sentence that you really think captures the essence of the poem. And I'll share my one sentence after you guys write down yours in a bit. I see Ella said, I have a question. Why would Emily Dickinson use a bird to symbolize hope? Why not a flower or another animal? Me personally, I don't really know. I think it's always up to up to the author or up to the poet, right? That makes these, who has creative license. And so they really get final say, or they really, if they see it as a bird, or they see, this could be a really easy way to describe and picture it, then I think that's, that's totally okay. And that's definitely like a way you should go. There's not really the best answer of why she chose hope as a bird, but I think as a creative, as a poet or as a writer, right, you have that creative license to be able to choose what you want to do. Okay, if you guys want to raise your hands and share your sentences, go for it right now. And raise your hand. So I'll look at Alvin.
So I did. Emily Dickinson says that hope can be anything and it is always in us, anywhere and anytime.
Nice. Okay. It's pretty good. Anyone else want to share? See, Ella, is your hand up? On mute. Cool, then I'll lower your hand. So yeah, I'm gonna go into chat. So I see hope is a bird that is always there in your soul, and it's always there singing even in terrible situations. And then hope is a bird that is not easily destroyed but uses nothing out of you. I think that's close. Hope can be found anywhere at any time. It brings happiness and can be destroyed with the right force, taking away the thing that comforts so many people. Yeah. And then I see one more question kind of thing, or like a constant that perches in the soul. I think that is symbolizing how hope is always inside of you and will help you when you need it. Yeah. Hope is confidence, and confidence can pull you through. Mine is the poem Hope by Emily Dickinson is about a bird symbolizing hope, and hope is found anywhere and anytime. Yeah, so I'm seeing a lot of this good stuff, like a lot of this good, about you guys are drawing this in, and I think that's really awesome. And I think one thing, if I had to give you guys constructive criticism or anything, it'd be to be more specific and be, a little bit more precise in your language. And so instead of using anytime and anywhere, which, does work, when you say anytime and anywhere, that kind of covers everything, right? And so if you're able to fine tune it, which I know is hard because it actually is kind of the sentiment of the poem that hope it can be there at any time, or anywhere, hope can be anywhere. I think if you can try to be the most specific possible, but still in a lens where you're not just focusing on the bird, then that would be the best way. Sophie, is your hand up? Could unmute you.
So I think hope is a bird that like is part of you,
Mm-hmm.
and when like when it encounters a storm, it like helps you through. So like you're basically in the storm, and then the bird is trying to help you by guiding you through.
Yeah. So I'm seeing a lot of good things in the chat, guys. I'm really glad that you guys are able to get there. And I'm just gonna read the last couple I see. So hope is everywhere. Hope is everywhere, and it is always with you. And even in the strangest / stormiest sea, hope will always find you and help you, and it asks nothing in return. Hope can be anywhere at any time to help us, but it will never ask us for help. I believe she chose to use a bird because a bird is the soul and lights up the person. It is light and survives through a lot. Perhaps. Yeah. So I think in my sentiment, I didn't fully write down like a sentence. But I think hope is a powerful source that lives within us, and um, it's always present. And it's normally always present, right? You can go almost anywhere and still find hope. Yet at the same time, it can be battered and it can be, dimmed down and it can be, almost put out, but it's always still there, and it never really asks anything of you, right? And I know that's a little bit, wordy and a little bit unconcise, and I've had, a little bit of time to write down and make it more concise. But I think that's a general sentiment, and I think most of you guys got that. And I'm really glad you guys did.
But I'm still confused on like, yet never in extremity it asks a crumb of me.
Uh-huh. So in that sentiment, or in those two lines, basically Dickinson is trying to say that hope is always there, and yet it never asks anything of me. It's there. So it's basically saying, I don't need to do anything for hope, but it's always going to be there for me, and it's always going to do stuff for me.
Free labor, except
I didn't quite catch that.
So it's like it's doing stuff for you. It's like helping you, and like
Yeah.
it only wants to help you, and it doesn't want you to like give anything back.
Yeah. So it's always there to help you, and it never really asks anything in return. That's a basic sentiment. All right. I'm just gonna go quickly through some. I'm gonna go quickly through some of the form stuff because we don't have quite that much time. Also in chat, you guys can't see chats because they're directly to me, so you can't see each other's, which I know sucks, but I try to read them out when I see something really good, and I try to read them out, your classmates' thoughts. But yeah, if you can't see them, that's probably why. You probably won't be able to. So first of all, I just want to talk really quickly. This poem kind of has a rhyme scheme. Pretty sure it's an A, B, C, B. And so that basically means that these two rhyme, but these two don't. So these two don't rhyme. And so it's a very loose one. It's not, it's not very solid at all times. It's not, totally there, but at the same time, it's like a loose rhyme scheme, right? And so the point of rhyme schemes normally is to kind of keep stuff flowing and to keep stuff, on a roll and on a, like, kind of, it's to basically keep stuff flowing so you're not just stuck in one place and it feels very, and so it doesn't feel very like choppy and, how would I say, like, it doesn't feel like you're going one way and all of a sudden the thought changes. And while people may do that, in this case, that's not, I think, what Dickinson was going for, and that's why she used the rhyme scheme. But yeah, so I think it's always just worth noting any rhyme schemes that this poem has. And that was a very quick version of just the rhyme scheme. And I'm gonna let you guys take a break, take a 5-minute break, and we'll come back for vocab. If you have any other questions, put them in chat. Sorry. But yeah, I'll try to get through as many as I can. The class will end in 20 minutes. Jonas, I see your hand is up. We have a 5-minute break, but we have 3 minutes left to break. All right, so with this last minute of break, start to come back to your devices or computers or iPads or whatever you're on. And start coming back and getting ready to refocus. Well, let's get started. Cool. So the first root of the day is mal. Mal means bad and evil, right? So we're continuing right now, Lucas. Sorry, I'm looking at chat, but mal basically it has to be something with negative connotation, right? Or it has to be something bad or evil. So from that, we can kind of deduce that its definition, well, one of its definitions in verb would be to speak poorly of someone, right? And that'd be kind of like a bad action, or you be kind of a bad person to speak poorly of someone, or to make them feel worse and make them feel worse by talking behind someone's back. Or the adjective would be evil in nature or a bad person in nature, which fits hand in hand with this, bad, evil root definition of mal. So other words that use mal, maleficent, malice, dismal. And so, you can, I feel like I mentioned this before, but, mal can always be part in different parts of the word. It doesn't have to be at the beginning or the end. It can be in the middle. So sometimes you have to look a little bit harder for roots, but that's why I try to keep this in. So as I said, malware, yeah, I think malware would work. Malfunction, malnourished, I think those would all work pretty well. The main thing about mal is, the main thing about roots is if you can find a strong connection, or you can find a logical connection between the definition of the root and the definition of the word you're trying to connect it to, then I'd say that's a pretty good word for it, or that works pretty well. All right, so other roots would be miss, and so miss would also mean bad or like an evil or have a negative connotation. Maleficent, so I'm seeing what does maleficent mean. So maleficent means it's an adjective. It's basically causing harm or destruction, or it's causing bad things to happen to people or to things or to other people, I guess. If you guys have watched the movie Maleficent, that's a pretty interesting movie, and it actually has it in the title and it fits right in. Yeah, so I'm seeing Maleficent like the movie. Cool. And so these roots for today, they're more pretty spot on. They're not like last week's roots where they were a lot more confusing. There were a lot more things to get through, and I just did that because I thought you guys had a pretty hard week with vocab last week, and I just wanted to give you guys an easier time for this week, and so that way you guys can kind of balance it out. So odd means hear. So on addition would likely have to do with something with hearing, or maybe you hear someone, maybe, or it's like a form of hearing. But if you look at the definition, it's a performance that is evaluated. So if any of you, play instruments, likely you've had an addition for like a talent show or something, or for, uh, maybe for a performance or like for a competition, likely you'd have an audition. And so, one way you could see it as someone or a judge hears you out and hears what you have to offer. So other words that use odd, audible. So that means you're able to hear something, or hearable. Audio, auditorium. Auditorium might be a stretch, but the way I saw it was that, auditorium is a big kind of room that everyone goes into in order to hear someone, or to hear someone speak, or to hear someone perform. It's all about, being in the presence of someone to listen to them. I see someone says audience. That's great. Inaudible. That's great. That uses two roots actually, odd and in. And so for odd, there's no actually other roots that I found are common roots that also mean here. But yeah, so this one just one, odd means here. All right, ject. So ject is to throw. So to reject would have something to do with throw, right? And so for those of you who know the definition, like I reject this I reject this letter, right? You're not accepting it, you're getting rid of it, or you're kind of throwing it out, right? So other words with ject, interject, so you jump into someone or you throw yourself into something. To inject and deject. Also, if you play any games, or if you've seen TV shows, a lot of times it'll be like eject or something, right? Or if you've seen like movies with military or like planes and stuff, you might see the pilot eject themselves from the plane or throw themselves out of the plane. So ject and jack, yeah, they're pretty much, so jack also means throw. It's part of ject as well, but yeah, if you, the T doesn't necessarily need to be in there. I see someone said project. Project. If you give me a solid argument, then I might take it. For me right now, I can't see anything that has to do with it, but yeah. All right. And the last one would be pan. Pan means all, right? So kind of suiting for the times. Pandemic, which we are in right now. So a pandemic is a disease outbreak across a country or the world, right? The disease outbreak that affects all, it spreads across all, right? And so pan means all. So other words with pan would be like a panoramic, and like a pandemonium. Pandemonium is kind of like an excitement, or like kind of a like chaos caused by everyone, or people all around. Like, so it's kind of like a large number of people all in like a state of chaos. I'm seeing an argument. Project is like a projector that throws an image on the screen. Okay. Perhaps I think that would work. I see A has a question. Go ahead and raise your hand. You can ask it, or you can put it in chat, whatever feels better. And so other words that mean pan would also be omni. So like a omnivore. If you guys have seen, movies or dinosaurs, right? An omnivore would eat both meat and greens and like plants or other animals. A, want to meet you.
How about pancake? It has
Pancake?
pan in the beginning.
I don't particularly see it, how pancake would do with all, but yeah, I don't think I'd do that. That would really work. So with that, yeah, so those are the vocab words for this week. We'll go through them all one more time. Here's a kind of snapshot really quickly, sorry, of what we've done so far, but we'll get to that in a bit. So mal, bad, evil, so it's miss. Yeah, so it's miss. Sorry, I was just looking at chat. Odd means here. There's no other common roots that would also mean here. Ject is throw, so ject. If you see them in a word, try to look, they don't have to be just in the ends like they are here, but they can be perhaps in the beginning. I haven't seen any quick examples or in the middle. I can't come up with any off the top of my head, but if you can find them, go for it. It's good on you. And finally, pan. So pan means all, so does omni. And so like we did last time, we're not going to do it right now, but a really good exercise for you guys to get these, or for you guys to really, keep them in your mind other than Quizlet and flashcards, is coming up with words that use these roots. And so just make sure that when you come up with these words, that they actually have to mean something. Like they have to have a connection between the root and the word. So like pancake, that wouldn't work. You might be able to, you might say like, oh, but pancakes are loved by all, right? But that just, it's such a stretch that it's not possible anymore. It's not plausible. Projectile thing thrown out. Yeah, that would work. Cool. So yeah, so pan would mean all and omni would mean all. And so the last 5 minutes of class will probably be, we'll end a little bit early, but I just want to show you guys. So you guys can see, if you guys have been really studying, you guys have been looking at, week by week, we have around maybe like 4 different definitions with multiple roots attached to them. But this is all we've done since the beginning of class. And I feel like, you guys got to commend yourself. That's a lot of roots you guys have learned. Don't leave quite yet. We're not quite done with class. But yeah. All right, so homework. As I said, this class doesn't really have much homework or assignments. But the homework for every class and what's expected of you guys is to basically take these roots. I'll share them on Google Classroom. And so take these roots and memorize the roots I give you week by week, and hopefully be able to, memorize the roots from other weeks if you still need to do that, or just touch up on them to make sure you still know them. But yeah, so I included all the roots we've done so far, and on the slides as well, we have the roots that we just did this one. And so with that, thank you guys. Any questions in chat, go for them. Go forward, put your question in chat. Is class over? Yes. What about panic? I can perhaps see why you would panic. Yeah, I can perhaps see why you would do it. What I would say is just go make a connection first. If it's a solid connection, if it makes sense, then go for it and argue it. But if it is not, then it probably wouldn't count. Awesome. See you guys, and I'm gonna head out. Any questions, you can feel free to ask right now, immediately. But other than that, see you guys. I'll post these on Google Classroom.